In the Impact segment tonight, the fallout from the Ninth Circuit's ruling against President Trump's travel ban following last night's decision. Washington State's Attorney General, who has led the push against the ban, sounded off about what he thinks the president should do next.
The president does have a choice. He can continue to fight this, or he can tear up this executive order and start over. I would strongly encourage him to consider the latter course of action.
But is that the right way to go? Joining us now to analyze from Santa Ana, California, Chapman University law professor John Eastman, and from Washington, Jesse Burns, associate editor at The Hill. Start with you, Professor Eastman. The right way to go, we've heard all day what the Trump administration plans to do. Looks like they're going to go back. They may go back to the Ninth Circuit, and they also may write another EO, executive order. What should he do?
Well, I don't think those are mutually exclusive. I think he should do both. I mean, the fact of the matter is this Attorney General is going to challenge whatever he does with his executive order, because the one that he previously issued was patently constitutional, square on and authorized by the existing law, a law, I might add, that neither the Ninth Circuit nor Judge Robart bothered to cite in their opinion, saying the president was unlikely to succeed on the merits. And so I think the president should continue to go back to the trial court and lay the case out. But he ought to issue new executive orders segmenting each of the components of this one, saying, okay, you say there's a due process right for people coming over from Somalia who have never been here. The Supreme Court has said otherwise numerous times. Here's that executive order.
Yeah, so let me get Jesse Burns in here. Jesse Burns, there have been constitutional law professors all day talking about if you take the executive order on its merits, not on standing, but on its merits, likely the Trump administration will win at the Supreme Court level.
Well, what the Ninth Circuit found, one of the two things that it ruled essentially was that it rejected the government's argument that they had to reinstate this travel ban immediately for national security reasons. Of course, if it goes to the Supreme Court, and it seems to be some confusion over whether the Trump administration will actually go that route. They said tonight that all options are on the table. But if it does go to the Supreme Court, right now there are only 8 justices. So if it deadlocked 4-4, this Ninth Circuit ruling, which essentially blocks this travel ban, would be the one that would remain in effect.
Professor, do you agree with that? Do you think that it would end up being a 4-4 tie at the Supreme Court level at this point?
I would hope not. I would hope it would be at least 6-2, and quite frankly, I hope it would be unanimous. The law is so patently clear here. The Supreme Court itself has said questions of who to admit into the United States or not is solely within the powers of the political branches, largely immune from judicial review. And the statute that gives the president authority here could not be more clear that the president has this authority. So I would hope that the Supreme Court would decide this unanimously and push back. Well, quite frankly, and I said in your other guest magazine earlier today, or newspaper, I think this is a coup d'etat by the judiciary, unwilling and refusing to recognize the results of the election last November.
Yeah, and Jesse, is it possible that this court, I mean, we know the Ninth Circuit's a liberal court. We know that. There are other circuits. You go to Texas, you'll have probably a more conservative opinion coming out of Texas, but the Ninth Circuit decided to take it up and decided to push back on Trump's travel ban.
Well, there are, a variety of options here. One thing that kind of broke late tonight was that we understand a judge on the Ninth Circuit is requesting the full panel to review it. Of course, the ruling yesterday was just from a 3-judge panel. It was unanimous, which does complicate the president's argument.
But unanimous in a very liberal circuit.
Right. So, you know, if the Trump administration continues to pursue this at the Ninth Circuit level, which could happen in the next couple of weeks, we don't know yet, then that, court is going to be the one at play. But the bigger, alluding to what John said earlier, if it plays out in the federal district court up in Seattle, the merits of the case is what the administration feels like they've got a stronger case on, and Trump is going to, continue to play it out there. At the same time, he might bring forward a separate executive order because he wants something to get done.
Professor, throughout the day there were rumblings that possibly the court was upset. Did we lose a professor? Do we have the professor? Is he here? I think we lost the professor. All right, I'll ask you that, Jesse. Okay, professor's back. There was rumblings all day today that maybe the court was upset because at one point Mr. Trump, President Trump, had said that the court, this isn't even a case for the court. It shouldn't even be heard by the court, and they pushed back on that.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a provision in the law on the revocation of visas that say the Secretary of State has that authority, and the Congress has specifically deprived the lower courts of having any jurisdiction to consider such matters because they recognize this is in the core wheelhouse of the executive power. What was the Department of Justice supposed to do in open court at the hearing earlier this week? Announce all of the intelligence we have about which people we're following and who might be terrorists coming into this country? so that we advise them? I mean, there's a reason the executive operates in certain areas outside of judicial review, and this is one of them. And you know, the combination of the executive and the Congress here, like I say, it's palpably clear the president was well within his authority here.
And Jesse, a final thought on this, not to give me about 30 seconds or so. This is not unusual for a president to first lose on appeal and then win at either another appeal or at Supreme Court level.
Yeah, no, we saw with the Obama administration, the Ninth Circuit, or appeals courts in general, being those challenged of going to the Supreme Court and seeing a different ruling. But I think something to remember with all of this is that this order, this restraining order that was imposed last week in Seattle, that's going to stay in place until there is some type of other ruling. And so at this point, the Trump administration, what they could do and what we're expecting at this point at least is for them to craft a maybe narrower executive order that exempts some of these refugees and while pursuing this legal case.
All right. I got to leave it right there, John and Jesse. Thank you very much.